So let's kick off this explainer with a pretty provocative question. Are you truly digital? Seriously, take a second and think about that. Is your organization's idea of a digital strategy just, tossing a few files into the cloud? Or is it a fundamental ground-up rewiring of how you actually operate and deliver value? Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're completely demystifying digital strategy. We're going to zoom all the way out to the highest levels of global government, and then zoom right back in to the apps sitting on your phone right now. And to do this, we're using an incredible, comprehensive framework drafted by strategy and turnaround consultant and IEEE senior consultant Hassan El-Meligy. All right, Section 1, Decoding Digital Strategy. Let's dive right in and establish what this blueprint actually looks like before we start applying it to the real world. Fundamentally, a true digital strategy is a comprehensive, intensely data-driven plan. Look, it's not just some isolated IT project. We're talking about a massive strategic shift that leverages technology across absolutely every single facet of an organization. The goal? To hit measurable business outcomes and, most importantly, completely elevate the customer experience. It is literally how you maintain a competitive edge in an era where tech just moves at breakneck speed. And the development steps here form a really logical progression. You don't just buy a bunch of expensive software and cross your fingers, right? You start by assessing your current capabilities, figuring out your baseline digital maturity. Then you define clear objectives, map out your customer's journey, and only then do you actually select the tech that fits. From there, you build a roadmap, execute, and measure that return on investment. It's a continuous, never-ending loop of improvement. So now that we know what a digital strategy fundamentally is, here's our agenda for exploring its massive impact across society. We're going to cover transforming the government, synergy in the private sector, powering SMEs and startups, tech for social good, and finally, the multi-level framework that ties this whole shebang together. Moving to Section 2, Transforming the Government. Starting at the absolute macro level, I want you to think of governments as these giant construction crews building the digital roads that the rest of us drive on. The primary objectives of a government's digital strategy focus heavily on enhancing public services, pushing open data transparency, and driving overall economic growth. Because let's be real, governments aren't trying to make a quick profit here. They are building the bedrock. These digital roads are an absolute necessity for modern civilization. Without massive, sweeping infrastructure projects like rolling out nationwide 5G networks, building secure cloud systems for sensitive citizen data, or designing IoT-enabled smart cities, the private sector just has nowhere to build. Governments are creating that baseline ecosystem, which basically dictates how fast and how far a nation's economy can scale. And we're seeing this scale globally in some seriously powerful ways. Take Estonia, for example. They essentially run a fully digital e-governance model, right down to an e-residency program. Or India, which completely revolutionized basic service delivery with Aadhaar. That's a biometric ID system seamlessly distributing public welfare to over 1 billion people. 1 billion! And then you have Singapore's Smart Nation initiative, using AI and digital twins for real-time, data-driven urban planning. I mean, that is the sheer mind-boggling scale of a macro digital strategy. Okay, Section 3, Synergy in the Private Sector. Let's shift gears and see how this builds into the private sector. This is where those massive public digital roads are suddenly populated by sleek, highly innovative storefronts. The crucial point to grasp here is the stark contrast between these two sectors. While public sector strategy prioritizes broad service delivery and digital equity for everyone, the private sector's strategy is a totally different ballgame. It is a ground game laser-focused on profitability, operational efficiency, and gaining that ruthless competitive edge. Private companies are taking those government-built digital roads and figuring out how to deliver goods faster, automate crazy complex global supply chains, and build highly personalized experiences for you, the customer. But here's the thing. These two spheres aren't operating in isolated sandboxes. They synergize seamlessly through public-private partnerships, or PPPs. Governments provide the foundational policy frameworks and critical funding, right? Meanwhile, the private sector swoops in with the agility to deploy cutting-edge tech like AI and cloud computing. Together, they're sharing essential cybersecurity intelligence and funding massive tech incubators that, honestly, neither of them could pull off entirely on their own. All right, Section 4, Powering SMEs and Startups. Zooming in even closer to the micro level, we find small and medium enterprises and startups. These are the lean, incredibly agile innovators of our digital ecosystem. The framework points out something really key here. Startups operate in a wildly fast-paced, high-risk environment, so they require lean, scalable digital strategies. Because they face these massive resource constraints, their strategy basically has to abandon heavy infrastructure altogether. They can't afford custom servers. Instead, they lean into minimum viable products to test the market fast. They use rapid, agile iterations, and they rely heavily on aggressive, low-cost growth hacking to acquire those vital initial customers. So to survive and thrive, they rely on highly cost-efficient, massively scalable toolkits. They manage targeted marketing campaigns using tools like Canva and SEMrush. They drive global e-commerce via platforms like Shopify or WooCommerce, and they handle massive customer relationship operations seamlessly with HubSpot or Zoho. Even deep data analytics and daily global team collaboration happen entirely off-site using Google Analytics, Slack, and Microsoft Teams. By tapping into these affordable, off-the-shelf solutions, a tiny startup can essentially manage world-class operations without the crushing overhead. It lets them scale up instantly the literal second they hit product-market fit. Moving into Section 5, Tech for Social Good. What's absolutely fascinating here is how we can take those exact same agile private sector tools and pivot them entirely towards civil society organizations and NGOs. Nonprofits are operating with the exact same digital toolkits, but instead of chasing profit margins, their ROI is impact. They utilize CRM software and digital marketing to amplify donor fundraising, run massive global awareness campaigns, and securely collect data for social advocacy. When it's perfectly executed, a digital strategy allows a totally grassroots NGO to have a massive, outsized impact on the world stage. Which brings us to Section 6, the multi-level framework. To really grasp the cinematic scale of this whole ecosystem, we need to view how all these disparate components, from the massive governments down to the scrappy startups and NGOs, lock together into one single system. According to this highly researched framework by IEEE senior consultant Hassan El-Meligy, all of these layers form a cohesive, deeply interconnected global engine. It's like a giant puzzle. You really can't look at one piece in a vacuum without understanding how it fits with the others. This breakdown explores the ecosystem across 4 distinct levels, and it makes so much sense when you lay it out. At the macro level, national and sectoral strategies build the foundational policy, the cybersecurity frameworks, and provide the necessary funding. Then, the meso level takes those policies and applies them organizationally and industry-wide to foster innovation, partnerships, and build regional tech hubs. Drop down to the micro level, and that's where local businesses, startups, and NGOs use that infrastructure to drive the local economy through those affordable digital tools we just talked about. And finally, it all rests on the foundational tier, the citizen. The entire ecosystem fundamentally depends on empowering the individual through digital literacy, inclusion, and participatory governance. If the citizen can't access or use the digital tools, while the macro infrastructure goes to complete waste and the microeconomies just fail to scale. So it's a continuous, dynamic loop. Think about it. A macro-level government 5G rollout directly allows a micro-level local startup to sell their products globally without a hitch. And conversely, crowdsourced citizen data flows all the way back up to the top to inform better, smarter national macro policies. Everything literally feeds into everything else. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really ask yourself, where does your organization actually operate within this macro to micro framework? And more importantly, are you fully utilizing the incredible digital roads being built all around you to scale your true impact? The framework is out there. The tools are totally accessible. The next move is entirely yours.